Hello, everyone. Hi. Just before I start, am I audible? If somebody can just let me know.
Can hear you
Yes,
perfectly.
you
Yeah,
are.
you are.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. So, hello all. A very good afternoon. Myself, Ekta Dubey, and on behalf of the Brinalytics team and our partner, Abzuba, we welcome you all and thank you for being part of a roundtable accelerating AI adoption for emerging enterprises in India. Before we start a roundtable, there are a few guidelines that I would like to highlight and make you people aware of. Requesting all the attendees to be on mute when the speakers are taking the session. There would be a Q&A after each session where the attendees can ask if any to the respective speakers. Also, you have a chat box where we know that we are going to have lots of questions, so you can put your questions into the chat box. In case we are unable to answer, Abzuba team will get back to you with all the details with answering all your queries. So the guidelines are you need to raise your hands, unmute yourself on your video, introduce yourself, your name, company, designation, and put your questions, if any, to the respective speakers. So to start with, I would like to introduce our partner, Abzuba. Abzuba is a big data, cloud, and advanced analytics solution company that instruments cognitive journey for enterprises. They access the cognitive maturity of their customers' process and build smart solutions to infuse the power of cognition and insights into decisioning. As a trusted artificial intelligence partner, Abzuba develops end-to-end AI solutions, delivering disruptive value. From data assimilation and transformation to AI model deployment, they augment the digital transformation journey using their AI lifecycle management framework, Espresso.ai. So today we are here to learn from the experts and gain deep insights on the state of deployment of ML Ops platform by the emerging enterprises in India. Unlike the large enterprise in India, the emerging enterprises are expected to be agile and proactive in starting their AI journey. Not wasting much time, I would like to introduce and welcome our moderator for a roundtable, Michael Wetz. He's a host of the Asia Tech podcast and had worked in global finance for more than 20 years, employed by firms like Citigroup, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, primarily in Tokyo. Michael is a leader in the digital media space, having pioneered the concept of a podcast network in Asia while building the biggest and the fastest growing listener base in the region. His flagship website, asiatechpodcast.com, has listeners in over 130 countries, and his company, Michael Watts Media, produces some of the Asia's most popular podcasts. So, Michael, over to you to take over the roundtable. Thank you.
Hello, Hector. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. We have an incredible collection of guests today. And the topic we're going to address is the challenges to the adoption of artificial intelligence at scale and how the emergence of end-to-end ML ops platforms can facilitate this. And we've got, like I said, we've got a great group of guests today. And I'd like to give each guest an opportunity to give a quick 2-minute self-introduction. And for convenience, I'm going to go in alphabetical order. So let's start with Santosh Bhatt, the head of data science at Policy Bazaar. Maybe you could just give a quick introduction of yourself.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for letting me on the show. My name is Santosh Bhatt. I currently head the data sciences at policybazaar.com. We handled quite a bit of machine learning, predictive analytics, and natural language understanding here at Policy Bazaar. Prior to this, so I've got about 20 years of experience post my masters, and you could say by pedigree, I've actually learned machine learning, and I've been doing this for quite some time now. I've been with companies like Myntra, Hotstar, and Microsoft before.
Super. Okay, let's move on to Mukesh Jain, the CTIO and VP Insights and Data at Capgemini in India. Please go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Mukesh Jain. As a Chief Technology Innovation Officer, I am responsible for defining future of AI analytics for my clients in globally. Also, to 25 years in the industry, most of my time was working for Microsoft in US. Also had the honor to write Microsoft's first ever AI algorithm for Outlook 21 years back. Always passionate about teaching and coaching and sharing knowledge. Looking forward for the panel discussion.
Super. Thank you very much. Let's move on to Kamal Kishore, India Site Lead and Director Technology, Data Platform and Intelligence at Expedia.
Thanks, Michael, and thanks everyone. Very excited to be part of for this roundtable. My name is Kamal, and I'm working with Expedia as a director of data engineering and intelligence. As part of my role, I'm responsible to modernize our data platform and also build a data first culture. Previously, I've worked with the organization like ThoughtWorks, IHS Market, Royal Bank of Scotland, where I was leading data teams. When I talk about data teams, it's both data science and data engineering, and have been fortunate that I've always been to data, where I've been involved in some or other way and seen the entire life cycle from classic code to now the modern cloud-based ML and AI solutions. Thank you.
Super. Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to Panitkur Kohli, the CTO at Universal Sampo General Insurance. Please go ahead.
Michael, she is not there, I suppose.
Michael, she's joining in. She's just joining in 2 minutes.
I've joined already.
Okay, great.
Can you let
great.
me know what
Thanks,
is it
ma'am.
about? Sorry for joining in late.
Not
Sorry,
at all.
go
We can
ahead.
hear you
Good
perfectly
afternoon,
fine.
everybody. Good afternoon, all my fellow participants and my viewers and all my co-panelists. Yeah.
Can you just give a quick introduction of yourself, just like a 2-minute quick
Okay,
intro?
I'm Dr. Panitkur Kohli, and I work for Universal Sampo General Insurance Company Limited as a CTIO, and I take care of the IT, digital, and tech initiatives.
Super. Thank you very much. So now we'd like to move to Banu Kumar, the data science mentor at Upgrad. If you could go ahead, that would be great.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I am Banu Kumar. I am a mentor in Upgrad. I know a couple of my co-mentors of Upgrad are here as panelists.
There you are. Indeed.
And I am also an independent consultant, big time into AI, ML training and consulting. I've been in the IT industry for the last almost 30 years, grown with the IT, been with the club, been there, done that. So worked on cloud environment, worked on development environment, a bit of all of these. So currently I focus more in terms of giving back to the society. And that's where one of the things is mentoring as a mentor in the Upgrad. I do a lot in terms of student community, and I do a lot in terms of consulting on AI ML. Like one of my co-panelists said, as a natural learning, I think I have been into AI and ML now with the growth of the industry.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. And you're right, mentoring, very important. Everybody should do it. We'd like to move on to Manoj Kumar, VP, Head of Data Platform at Paytm. Please go ahead.
Hi everyone, this is Manoj Kumar. I'm handling data platform for Paytm, so which basically means data engineering part of it, data insights, all other aspect of it. And we use all this data for making our merchants' life easy, and not to mention our customers' life easy as well. So I'm very excited to be part of this discussion.
Thank you very much. Next up is Birendra Kumar Sahu, Head of Data Engineering and Science at Razorpay. Please go ahead.
Hey, hi. Hi, everybody. I'm Birendra. I'm head of data platform in the Razorpay. Which include all the data platform activity, including the AI and ML activity. I work around, I have a 20-year experience in the IT. I work for the Teradata at the advanced database head. And lot of the data platform, building the data platform, AI capability and other things.
Sure, at DCB Bank.
Yeah, I think there was a connectivity issue. He's back, yes.
Is he back? Okay. Let's do that again. Prasanna Lohar, could you give a sort of 2-minute introduction of yourself, please?
Prasanna Lohar would be joining a little late, Michael. When he comes in, he can introduce. You can move on to the next panelist. Thank you.
No problem. Let's move on. So Paul Matthew, the Director of Practice Leader at KPMG in India. Please go ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you,
Hi,
Michael.
Paul.
Thanks, Ekta, for having me here. I come with close to 18 years of experience. All of it has not been in data and analytics. I spent the first 9 years in the industry, mainly in the business and strategy side, working with CXOs. And in the last 9 years, when I joined KPMG, I was fortunate enough to co-create or co-found the data analytics team out here. And after that, we've been working with several clients across sectors, whether it's consumer, banking, um, manufacturing sectors across regions, and being very fortunate to have implemented multiple of these solutions across multiple clients, and keeping it real at the same time. Very passionate about responsible AI and the next steps in or the pitfalls in implementing AI. Looking forward for a wonderful discussion.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to Narasimha Medem, the Director of Data Science at Make My Trip. Please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for putting together this podcast session and for the interaction with everybody else. So I am part of Make My Trip and GoIbibo brands. So I look after primarily hotels, but in addition, I have a couple of other lines of business, data science projects like ranking, personalization, dynamic pricing, and a few other business problems where data plus models could help. And so we have been building platforms or systems that can address AI/ML solutions for the business problems. And I've been here since 2018. And prior to that, I used to work in an ML consulting firm, solving business problems for a diverse set of domains and business practices.
Super. Okay, next up is Vartul Mittal, leading technology and innovation specialist and a seasoned digital transformation and automation leader. Vartul?
Yeah, hey, hi, Michael. Thanks a lot. So definitely, I take a pleasure in joining this forum. And I have been of late moved to a role where I've been working as a technology and innovation specialist for a couple of my clients into RPA, AI, and machine learning. So that has been the role. And I have been lucky enough to solve a couple of use cases, primarily into fraud, credit card disputes, mortgages. So I love solving the use cases in an end-to-end scenario where that's not only machine learning, but a combination of technologies, few primary, few ancillary that we put together to solve the use case. And that is how that gives me more energy to move ahead. Thanks a lot, Michael, for the introduction.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up is Ashish Paul, data science mentor at Upgrad. We said we had a couple of these people, so please go ahead.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for taking me here. So I'm working as a data scientist at Philips Healthcare, and along with that, I'm a mentor at Upgrad and Great Learning. So prior to that, I worked with Siemens Healthineers and Accenture. So I roughly have around 5+ years experience in data science, and I've seen the kind of growth over the industry and as far as my career. So I love to interact with all of you, and yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, just a few more people. Harshal Parashar, Director of Analytics at 1MG. Please go ahead.
Hey everyone, it's an honor to be part of such an esteemed panel, first of all. So I have spent 8 years of my professional life, mostly with startups, building them from ground up. Analytics was eventual path that led to be in one of my startup, and I started with my analytics journey 5 years ago. I'm currently working as a director of an analytics team at 1MG, where we are solving a lot of healthcare related problems. So especially during COVID, we have seen a lot of new and challenging problems that have come our way. And we are using data, machine learning, various models to solve the problem at scale and actually make a difference to people's life. So happy to be a part of this panel.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up is Surya Pratim Sarkar, Head of Data Science at Zomato. Please go ahead.
Hey, hello everybody. I mean, as Harshal has said, that it is such a pleasure and an honor to be part of such an esteemed panel. My name, as Michael mentioned, is Surya Pratim Sarkar, which is a very long name. So Surya would be the short one. And I am currently the head of data science for Zomato. I have probably 15 plus years of experience and started with what they called at that point of time analytics, which has evolved over the time. The context, the methodology, the tools and the techniques, the way it is being executed and implemented is fabulous, and it has been a fabulous journey. Before this, I used to work for Bajaj, and before that, I used to work for a retail consulting, database retail consulting firm called Danambi. So that's about it. And looking forward, needless to say, looking forward to today's discussions and the questions. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, and finally, Parth Sharma, Chief Data Scientist at Jasper Cullen Research. Please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Michael. My name is Bhatt, and I work as a Chief Data Scientist at Jasper Cullen Research. Jasper Cullen Research is a market research and a consulting firm, and I currently handle all their analytics platform, and also I work as a solutions architect here. I come with a little experience of EdTech, also mentoring as one of our co-panelists here is an Upgrad. Upgrad is an e-learning firm here, so I also come with a similar experience. And with that, I also work, in visualization strategies for certain clients that I have at our firm.
Super. Okay, I'd like to thank all of the guests for the great introduction. When we have, if somebody could help me out and let me know when Prasanna Lohar arrives or can give an introduction, let's do that. But until that, let's jump right into the questions. The first one is for Surya Pratim. So this one's for you. In most startups, it seems to me your internal processes always seem to be in a state of transition, right? They're growing quickly and things are always changing. And given that scenario, in your opinion, what is the best practice for leveraging machine learning to build cognitive solutions? And I would say, in other words, do you see stable processes as a prerequisite for implementing AI projects, particularly in an environment where instability is prevalent?
Fantastic question, Michael. So first we have to understand the instability stems from where? The instability mainly stems from three kind of scenarios. One, the business goal changes. Two, the situation changes, because ultimately ML is a data-driven rule engine which drives customer experience at real time. And thirdly, the impact area or the nature of the business, like the business expands or something like that happens. So at the end of the day, Michael, it's not a choice of either or, it's a choice of we need agility and we need stability. And to do that, what generally is being done as a best practice along with our own company is that we create data-driven rules through ML or through deep learning, which are situation specific, that some rule will act for some kind of customer segment, some kind of situation. So to give you an example, suppose there is a serviceability rule. In our case, Zomato is a food app. If you open, you would be able to see some restaurant, or if the rain happens because of that, say there is a flood, so all the restaurant would be closed. So there should be an automatic detection system through ML only, that this is a rainy situation or this is a normal situation. And then there would be rules that for normal situation, this kind of rule will occur, and for the rainy situation, this kind of rule will occur. This kind of situations, of course, after making mistakes, one has to learn, back calculate, develop, design, and embed into the whole digital decision-making process, which makes it really easy, because these are fraction of nanosecond, microsecond questions that we are talking about. Absolutely. So that's the way that you write different kind of rules for different kind of situations and embed it. That's the way we try to tackle it, but not always we will understand or we will come up with the ideas of all possible situations that can happen. And that's a continuous learning process.
So that's a really interesting answer. And I just have a quick follow-up, if you don't mind. You know, if you look at Zomato, it's kind of like a three-sided market, right? Because it's the Zomato company itself, it's the restaurants that you're dealing with, but also the clients that are ordering food from those restaurants. So you have multiple levels of challenge, right? How do you deal with the restaurant? Because internally you can build all the ML rules you want, right? And that's relatively easy to manage. But how do you help What are some of the challenges when you're dealing with the external restaurants? Some of whom may be big chains, but some of whom may be much smaller establishments. What are some of those challenges?
See, for the big chains that we are talking about, what we call brands,
right?
The challenges would be so there would be consistency about pricing, consistency about delivery time, because these things matter. Because when you order food, we have to show you after how much time you are going to have food.
Absolutely.
Now, for the small restaurants or not so small restaurants, but individual establishments, this kind of uncertainty or standard practices does not exist. The same Chinese or chop suey can take different time at restaurant A than at different time at restaurant B. So there, the standardization and the automation kind of stuff, what we call it, for the big chain helps. However, many a times what happens that the last mile of the delivery is being done by the chain. But in the case of big restaurants or the individual establishments, Zomato does it. So in one case, because it is being done by somebody who is outside of the organization, we still have to estimate the time and to give it. But in other case, we don't. Secondly, food quality. In many cases, because of the granular stuff for the big restaurants or the individual establishment, we can take some kind of guarantee. But for big chains, the power system is different and we can't always. Although we can raise the issue with them through customer complaint, but we can't directly affect it. So, and this goes on, but the fundamental of the debate is ownership versus control. In many cases, the last line for the big chains, it is not controlled by us. In the small cases, it is controlled by us. But in the small established cases, there is uncertainty. In the big chain cases, there is less uncertainty about the quality or the quantity or the time.
Understood. That was fascinating, actually. Let's move on. Manoj, Kumar, this question's for you. So as per a recently released Gartner report, some of the most important challenges to AI implementation are data volume and or complexity, data scope and quality problems. So one of my favorite problems, right? How clean is the data? How understandable is it? And data accessibility challenges. If you could share some insights on how you recommend handling some of these challenges, that would be great.
Oh, I think these are the challenges which I believe every big organizations are facing. Not the big, but mid-size as well. So the good part is that as we see, there's a lot of cloud capabilities are basically available for people to leverage that, which made everybody's life little bit easier. Not to mention the big data capabilities, right? Which helps you how to deal with all these larger data sets. How would you ensure that that quality is maintained? So that's a pretty big challenge. It actually also depends upon how the company, how the engineering thing or engineering teams are set up inside an organization. Whether you have a dictionary-driven system, which basically what the data is flowing into a system, and how would you define, classify, or basically having a data governance set up in a place so that you can understand what quality of data is flowing into an ecosystem, right? As far as the scale and dealing with all that, huge sizes, I think cloud is one of the very good tool, which is enabling almost all the organizations so that they can do computing at larger scale with that kind of elasticity, right? So I think these are the things that generally we use to deal with that. We define, have a data governance in place to basically ensure what kind of data we have in the system and what data makes sense for which kind of use cases that we have, and then use no doubt cloud for your best use.
Understood. So Birendra, I'd like you to answer the same question as well. I can repeat it for you if you'd like, but just based on this Gartner report, those challenges, right? Data volume and complexity, data scope and data quality, and data accessibility. Maybe you could share some of your insights as well, and maybe give some examples too. That would be great.
Yeah, Mike. As Manoj told, this is a problem across all the organization with dealing with the AI, all that. We also have a similar problem. How we are scale up, that when we talk about some of the terabyte of the data, now we have something petabyte of the data. Training need a lot of the data to handle. We have to run on the scale. Another bigger problem that our most of the AI ML model it work on the real time with the huge feedback loop. Feedback loop something like we have to understand that how is the behavior of our model, it working or not working, or how we have to have it that get the feedback and apply it. Generally, few of the things we applied to handle that type of the problem, right? Like that we do the data comparison where we train that some of the thing. We will going to run the training on the smart set on the different type of the batch side, and even that big data framework is going to help a lot. Like it basically I Manoj mentioned, it's a huge data set. We have a meaningful partition which we can use for the data processing. We can do that some of the model building capability and other things. And other point where we find that even we have a billion of the data point, it's not going to add much value on the incremental learning. Let me say that if we take around 3 month data and we have that billion of the data point, maybe that few million of the data point is giving the same type of the learning what it billion point of did. So you have to apply few of the innovator on top of that, classify the data, do the sampling on top of that to deal with that billion of the data point, right? So maybe that billion of data point may be reduced to few million of the data point, with giving the same type of the value or same type of the learning. When you talk about data quality, I think this is a big issue, right? And in data science field, we have a garbage in and garbage out, right?
Right.
And it's very true about that machine learning problem, right? Most of the thing is data quality. And if I talk about the data quality, I am to divide on the two parts. One is that you have a data, and data is very much correct, but there is an issue. Another thing that you have an incorrect data. When we talk about correct data, right? You have a data, but you have a missing event, duplicate event, outlier value, missing value, and other thing. And where you have to deal with that using some of the mathematical method apply on top of that and deal with that. Other is the bigger problem that you have a data itself is incorrect. And because of that, your model is not perform well, underperforming is going to come, unexpected result is going to come, and all the things. There are two different problems which we have to deal. But most of the company, with help of the crowd, with the big data, some of the innovation on top of that, how to train that your model, we will be able to solve few of the problems, right?
So can I follow up for a second? Just a quick thought, and hopefully you'll see the equivalency here. And I don't know if I'm right or wrong here, but it's just interesting to me. If I have a photograph, right, and I don't have all the raw data, equipment or software like, photo editing software can fill in the gaps because it can understand what was meant to be there, right? Using some sort of AI and sort of machine learning algorithms based on a whole bunch of other data that it has, right? So if you use Photoshop to do this, you can run an algorithm basically that fixes your photo. Can you do the same thing in data structures as well? Like you mentioned, there are missing pieces of data, but can you run algorithms that can iterate around what data was maybe meant to be there and replace it? Or is it just better just to delete that whole thing?
So you're very much right. I can generally what's going to happen, Mike, when you have a missing value, it's not easy to use the mathematical function and fill it because you are projecting some of the value, it may not be correct.
Right.
Generally, we have to use the different data source to find out a single type of the information and we fill it.
Okay.
There is one thing that that people apply some of the standard mathematical concept like missing the value using the average, mean or something. One area with, but not always going to do. So generally, what we are doing, we have different set of the data. Let me say that we are working on the payment and we feel that some of the information is missing on the payment uh, proceeding. We will collect that information from some event or something else, trying to find out. Maybe you take the example. So let me talk about the payment proceeding. And payment is very complex. It's going to process almost lot of the states like authorization, authentication. That OTP generation, OTP validation, smart routing, dynamic routing, and other things. And now when you're going to take some of the data which coming from your entity OLTP system, may have only the final state, right? I mean, payment is completed and this is the failure or this is the part. Now some of the information you are not able to get from there, but if each and every microservice have an event, you have a lot of the information you can take from there, fill it some of the information which you feel is the missing.
Right.
It's nothing but you have to combine a lot of the data source to find out missing data is going to fill. If you're not having any data, then you think about that some of the mathematical function, right? But accuracy is the different. And business problem nowadays, it's not about model accuracy and all the thing. That is nonsense. It's more about that how you are going to help the business. Like my goal to find out all the fraud you did or all the fraud payment, how much money I save or how much money loss is saved. That is the thing we have to find out. Right.
I understand. Okay, thank you very much for that, by the way. So the next question, let's go back to Manoj for a second. Manoj Kumar, have you experienced sort of data intake and data ingestion challenges while building data pipelines, considering structured data, unstructured data in your implementation of AI solutions? And maybe you could share some of the insights on those challenges as well.
Oh, it does, absolutely. We not only in Paytm, but anywhere where you go, the data comes in all shapes.
Right.
It comes in different sizes, it comes in different speed as well. So depending upon the problem, depending upon, again, the data categorization, let's say, for example, in some of the cases you say, hey, some is transactional data, how you want to handle it. Because one is how you handle it in terms of ingestion, and second is how you put security around it, right? That aspect. Some is basically simple events which are not having any PII data, etc. That again, you have to look at that. It's not only structured or unstructured data, it's now, it went to the next level, whether it's what kind of classification of that data belongs to, right? As you get into financial domain, that matters more than, structure and unstructured. So yes, you deal with them, looking at the problem, you choose the right kind of tools so that you can deal them more effectively. You choose the right kind of storage strategies. You build, no doubt there are different solutions people put in to deal with that, looking at the problem at hand, right? Some are, let's say, real-time streaming. You build streaming solutions for that. And multiple technologies are available for that. Some is little bit batch-based, right? You use different kind of solutions for it. So you build a layer which allows you to plug into all the sources, different kind of sources, and you bring into your own data lake or maybe data warehouses if someone is operating on a DWH.
Right. So can I just follow up again? You mentioned different size and different speed, right? That the data comes in. And I'm curious, even just in the last 5 years, how has the growth, and I would not even say that, I would say the explosion of compute power and the kind of dropping price of storage impacted that data ingestion process?
Well, I would say it helps us to basically use the technology in a more easier way, because the computing is relatively become easier. But at the same time, if you start driving certain values out of this data, you still have to pay a good amount of cost. It doesn't come cheap even today, right? Because you probably have to look for some highly specialized softwares, highly specialized services. This is still, there's a cost around it, right? But the good part is that because the cloud, you don't have to put in lots of capital around it, right? As you use, as you pay.
Right.
So more than the cost of it, it's I would say it's more maturing of the cloud services, the cloud adoption, which basically allows people to use more data, ingest more data, and basically make use of it.
Got it. And Paul Matthew, this is for you as well. If you could just address the same question, how have you experienced data ingestion challenges? The same question that Manoj just answered, but from your perspective, maybe you have a different point of view on this.
Sure, Michael. I think that's a wonderful question in the first place. And that's one of the nailing problems that we've been seeing repeatedly, implementation over implementation. One of the first points in data ingestion is basically more of a culture and experience problem.
Okay.
Let me explain that to you. Traditionally, when people or organizations used to ingest data into a warehouse, they would take only those fields of data that was important to them for the rest of the pipeline. Like if an SAP source would have, let's say, 200 fields of data, and you just needed 19 or 20 fields of data, you would just pick that in. What happens in such a scenario, and especially, I'm just adding up your follow-up question to this,
Please.
saying that for the benefit of everyone, saying that, but however, while building a data pipeline or for ingestion purposes into a data lake or to an enhanced enterprise data warehouse, given that the costs have plummeted pretty much, and compute has, computability power has also increased. It is only beneficial if the full data is just dumped into the data lake or data warehouse. One of the biggest benefits of doing that is that your model or model development becomes fully rounded. And it is not just going to operate in a silo or in a myopic manner. That has huge business benefits, huge, business decision-making benefits as well. That's the number one thing. The second part is the aspect of the repeatability in data ingestion. Usually what happens is that a lot of focus goes in pulling out historical data into a data lake. But, business environment changes. And one of the examples is rapidly changing environment. Like when the pandemic started, I'm sure there were newer fields of data that needed to be ingested. So the repeatability function of giving a dynamic view in ingesting data is extremely important. And that automatically leads to 2 points. Number one is the governance around it. Is the governance put in place to actually relook at what needs to be re-ingested as time has passed? And the second part of that is how much of the business owner is involved in making those decisions. So all these factors impact data ingestion pretty much in every implementation.
Yes, so interesting. I have so many follow-up questions.
Please go ahead.
I think we'll get back to you. I just want to move on so I can give everybody a chance to talk. But really interesting stuff. Really interesting. Thank you so much. Okay, Parth Sharma, this is for you.
Yeah.
And again, I wanted to follow up on this earlier anyway, so I'm glad we're going to ask you this. How have you handled data quality questions? Maybe you can share some insights from your own experience.
Okay, so before I explain that, the domain that we work in, market research, sometimes what happens is our clients come to us with a problem statement and they have a huge amount of data. I'm talking about the volume being incredibly big. And they have a lot of data points that they've collected over the period of time. So they have this existential question if they have a problem going on in their industry. They have a question of maybe how should we take certain things forward? What do we need to change internally? So with that, we've divided our processes internally in our company into 4 different phases, which we do collect, then we do analysis, which is analyze, visualize, and strategize. All of these 4 processes have its own techniques that we follow. So in terms of data quality, what I've seen, particularly in market research and consulting industry, is there are 2 situations. One situation where clients absolutely know what kind of data they need to collect, and it's pre-processed. So they have their own pipelines and the quality is incredibly good. And they could directly be used for analysis, and then we can take the entire thing forward. And the second thing is clients absolutely come with no idea about what kind of data points they've collected. Is it right or not? A lot of other problems like that. So what we have faced specifically in terms of data quality is when the processes of the companies are not very clear in nature, we kind of have to repeat the entire process again for that particular organization, collect the data again, and then once that works out, we test it, we validate it, and then deploy it. So that is one major problem that I've seen. One of the main, I'll also give you an example. We had this client who was collecting textual data. So textual data could have a lot of different applications. I could do sentiment analysis, I can do textual entailment, and then they also had audio data. So in terms of both textual and audio data, we could do different analysis in terms of with audio we could do something else, with text we could do something else. But what happened was, few data points that they have collected were not correlated. They were not important, but they thought they, were collecting the right data points. So in that case, what happens 90% of the time, we always reiterate in terms of data collection strategies with them. And once we have them, I think that's what helps us take the entire thing forward.
Got it. Again, really interesting. Thank you very much. So the next question I'm going to ask is really for three people in a row. And let's just do it in order. Hashil, Mukesh, and Kamal. Let's start with you, Hashil Parashar. What is your take on data scope or data quality problems as a barrier to artificial intelligence implementation? And maybe you can share an example or two as well.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting problem. And the data quality, so as I said in my introduction, right, I come from a startup background. So my experience in the last 8 years have been working with a small size company where it's like 5-6 people in the room. We are bootstrapped. And so the kind of data quality problems that we identified at that stage are very different than kind of what we are identifying now, where the company is 2000 strong and it's growing and it's countrywide and all that. So I think in terms of machine learning, in terms of advanced analytics, it's more relevant to our case now where we have a higher volume of data. One thing that we have identified regarding the quality of the data is making sure that if we are collecting data from various sources, the data is kind of talking to each other. They are telling a more coherent story altogether. We have in past made huge blunders where especially with the time related data. So it's very recent and more live for me than anything else. So where one of the timestamp was in UTC and other was in Indian time and on all that. So the whole kind of establishing whether how you're building the model, how you're passing on the data in the pipelines, and validation of the data is very important. Whether so however you want to cut the data, however you want to sample the data, the whole message or the whole overall context of the data should not be lost. That's very important. And in my experience, again, whole getting the data from a third party source, getting in another independent market research or a whole market data has its own challenges. It might not be the same story, it might not be the same metric, it might not be on the same plane. So you have to make sure that you translate it to your own metrics, to your own way, and then kind of read that or build any decision making process around that.
Got it. So you said you've spent a lot of time working in startups, right? Obviously, a domain where I operate quite a bit, but also gets back to the first question that we asked Surya Pratim as well. And maybe you can just give a quick answer, just with a little bit of concern on time, to that question as well, around just based on the things you've already said, but based on that sort of startups are inherently unstable, particularly when it comes to process and implementation. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe how that gets in the way of AI implementation?
So with startup, there are two kinds of flux, and I'll try and be very quick with that. There's flux with the direction. There's in terms of strategy, in terms of what the goals are, what the targets are, and there's flux in terms of what the whole with the people. So somebody talked about the culture. So in my experience, that also has a very deep impact on how you build your models, how you build your data layer, how you interpret it. And other aspect is the object of the startup. So you have to keep your models, you have to keep them on the toes, and continuous development, continuous processing, refinement has to be seen. So it's not like you build something, you play something, and you move on to your next project. You have to spend some sort of bandwidth in refining what you already have at a more continuous level. So it's along with a business analyst, you become a business ops guy as well.
Exactly. Okay, thank you so much. So Mukesh Jain, that question is for you as well. What is your take on data scope and data quality problems as a barrier to implementation? And maybe you can give some specific examples from your experience.
Sure. I've been dealing with this for almost 25 years now. And even when I was starting to build the first ever AI algorithm for Microsoft 21 years back, the thing about what should be measured, right? So that the data quality doesn't happen because somebody does it wrong. somebody doesn't know what to do. The data doesn't come automatically, right? Somebody have to write a code to be captured. I think we have to go back to that part. Of course, a lot of time we don't have that luxury, like when we are working on data science project or analytics project, AI projects, we have the data which is already available. But we all know the reality. The data never come in a CSV file. It is there in the system. Somebody have to create it. I think getting to the root, I think that is the one part. Unfortunately, there is no standards given. Like even if I argue with the startups and some of the thing, I'm doing consulting since I came back to India. It's hard to find a common understanding about what is the definition of a active user. Right? Why? Because there's no standards there. So that is the first part I would say is the starting point of how you capture the data. While I was working for Reliance Jio for 2.5 years, that is something which I did. The focus was only to capture a good amount of data so that can be used for them. So that is fixing part. Having said that, yes, we don't have luxury. We may still get the quality of the data quality issue will be there. The important part is how do you know that there is a quality issue, right? So for example, are there tools which can detect that, hey, by the way, there is a quality issue. Quality issue also include missing value and outlier. It could be a bunch of quality issue, or in fact, plain wrong data, right? The example which was given by UTC versus India time, there's the most classical one I have found out in the date and the time format. Huge opportunity for improvement there. Like even like standard, right? I've given standard to my team that we no longer use the date. Is it no? That's it. 2/25. No, we always use 25-FEV February so that people know that we are talking about which format. Third point. Having said that, we did the right things, we did that, but still we run into issue. I don't think we can do a good job of machine learning or artificial intelligence with the data which is questionable. So some of the I built some models while I was at Microsoft on also currently I'm doing at Capgemini for some of the one of the bank. When if the data is not there, how intelligently we can bridge the gap, we can do fine tuning of that data. First of all, identifying it and polishing and further. I think those are some of the new age requirement required wherein some of these models can be built which can actually overcome those gaps of the data science. But on and all, throughout the whole life cycle of the data, having some kind of a dashboard to show how the quality has been improving or deteriorating, like any other manufacturing. I think that should be something a need of the hour.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could do an entire show on just that topic alone, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Kamal, Kishore, same question to you. Can you share some examples of your own as well from your perspective?
Yeah, I think this question is quite sensational, I would say, and of course, make all of us a bit active because being a data professional, we know what data quality does to the thing, and but since you asked about the question about data scope and data quality as a barrier to AI implementation, I would like to take a pause and define what AI implementation really means to us, right? So
thank you.
Companies are at different maturity level. The companies who are just starting their AI implementation versus the company who are quite matured. So, and that's where the AI implementation scope differs. So if, for example, if we talk about AI implementation at a standalone level where a company has formed a pod and they're working on doing some kind of training models, we know what data quality can do. We have seen so many examples, where data scientists started with some data and they build a model, and the model didn't give the right prediction. The output was not up to the mark, or and there are certain symptoms that we found, whether the data was biased and all other things. So this problem still is manageable if it's being done at a standalone level. But the problem becomes really grave when it comes to overall enterprise level AI implementation, and that's the problem we are talking about. And when we talk about the enterprise level AI implementation of the data quality, interesting thing is there's no one single group which creates or produce data. There are almost different set of people or teams that are producing data. Very siloed traditional BI teams or data engineering teams that are preparing the data without knowing who's producing data and who's going to consume it. And there's different people who are going to consume the data. So it creates a big Chinese wall among all three teams, and that's what the fundamental cause. I mean, that leads to this kind of data issues. And further, if I provide another lens to look at it, and if you look at the AI maturity model, so the AI maturity sits on top of it, followed by analytics layer and followed by the engineering platform. So what essentially really matters is, and now I'm rather than telling that why data quality impacts, I think what's important to understand is how we can solve it or what are the ways to think about it. So what I generally say is, like, to address this enterprise-wide implementation so that we can avoid data quality issues, we need to look at from 4 angles: people, process, and platform. People is, what is the appreciation level about data quality issues or data scoping, so that people are conscious about how they're producing and consuming data. A platform is, how we're building platforms so that we are implementing a federated ecosystem where everyone is being made accountable to produce the right data, ingest the right data, and also to consume the right data with that's made certain metrics. And the processes, how we're setting up those processes, like the new processes that we are seeing about federated governance. So all those things put together help us to get to and remove those barriers of AI implementation of data quality.
That's a great answer. Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm so happy that we asked 3 people for 3 different perspectives, all of it added to each other. That was really great. Thank you very much. Okay, the next question is for Kumar. This is actually really interesting to me. Are we training data scientists on new technologies like using these emerging ML ops platforms? And what needs to be done to bridge the gap if you think there is a gap there?
Okay, that's a great question if you really look at it. The way I look at it is, there are quite a lot of similarities that come in, and there are a bit of a distinction that happens between the two, if you really look at it. So the way I take it is, when you are talking about a typical data scientist in terms of the roles, he is going to be focusing more in terms of some of what we were talking about, the data accuracy, the data correctness, and all of things around it. That is where the similarity comes in, because the data scientists and the MLOps guys will have to understand the business, the problem, whatnot around it, so that they are able to do it. But after that, when you start moving in, the differences come in wherein the data scientists usually work in terms of developing the content, whereas the MLOps guys will focus more on the production readiness, or in terms of the DevOps tools, they will probably look at a Circle CI or a Docker or whatever it is with the Google Clouds and your whatever they were talking about. So they are focusing more in terms of the concepts around the execution, whereas the data scientists will probably look at it more from a machine learning algorithm. They will look at it more in terms of how do I create an algorithm? Is my data right and all that? So that's where the difference comes in. But to answer your question, are we training them? Are we getting ready? Yes, there is quite a bit of thing that happens in terms of the training. A lot of it happens wherein we talk about just not the concepts behind, like, let's say, for example, when somebody is being trained on data science, which is what is pretty famous these days, we are just not stopping in terms of saying, yes, these are the models, this is how you'll do it or what it is, but we get into the industry readiness, we talk about industry scenarios and all that, where we bring in a lot of these real life case studies, just not as trainers or mentors, but also there is a lot that happens in the industry, and people who are close to it will be able to start looking at it. So we pick a lot of it, and then we start interacting in terms of the real life scenarios, because whatever said and done, all of us know Murphy's Law, all of us know everything. Where training ground is training ground, reality is different. And that's exactly what ML is also all about. We train a lot of things, but not always will we be successful. So we keep tweaking the data. So cutting the long story, yes, we are looking at a lot of training in terms of the ML ops, but at the same time, the basics are not lost. The basics are required. It's like an analogy. If you look at it, do I want to become a biotechnologist, or am I wanting to be a doctor? Doctor cures, but for the doctor, what medicine goes the biotechnologist tells. So that's the balance that I will look at it in terms of MLOps and data scientists. While I'm not demeaning anybody here. Hope that gives it clarity.
Yeah, like it's hard to separate the two, right? Because if you don't have good ML ops, that's going to be really hard to do your data science, right? Because otherwise you're going to spend months and months and months just trying to set stuff up. And if you set it up wrong, those two things have to work in symbiosis as far as I'm concerned, but you know better than I do. So Birendra, maybe you can answer, thank you very much, by the way. Birendra, maybe you can answer that question a little bit as well from your perspective. How can this skill gap be handled if that gap does exist at all?
Yeah, Michael. I think we did the problem is basically because the ML is the very specific type of data, and one thing always there is nothing like 1 + 1 = 2, right, on the ML. And most of the people, even to different type of skill, most of the engineer, they will going to work on this type of problem, right, in the back end and all that. But when you talk about the AI and another thing, it comes in very different. Another thing that data science is not just about the modeling. Now, most of the people feel that data science means people know how to do the model. Now auto ML is there and other things. It's more about the data recovery, uh, data quality, feature engineering, domain understanding, modern verification and other things, right? And even that mathematical knowledge, it become very important part of that in the complete when you deploy any of the model, right? And that problem is faced by the people, even the few of the with adopted AI very early, it is the problem. And we are the people with also have a problem with this one. What I feel that there is two things what would be started applying. One thing that we started training our people on the few of the capability. We are telling that okay, it start with the role weight or rule weight engine, apply some of the thing, trying to understand how you are going to understand the business value, capture the information, data understanding and all the thing. Apply it more experiment and see that how it's going to work. They may tomorrow become that potential data scientist or something, ML engineer or something like that. Other thing that we have to go with that outside and that some of the thin light here. Uh, that way we are working. It's not a direct, we can that we can solve this problem fully, but yeah, something like that we are working.
Got it. Okay. The next question is really interesting to me. Ashish Paul, this is for you. Explainability, and we can actually discuss what that means actually, is now becoming more and more necessary. It's becoming more and more like a mainstream need as data scientists work to create trust across all the stakeholders in an organization. This gets right down to the business people, right? Do you have some suggestions on how to handle this explainability of these machine learning models so that the business people that are actually using them can understand them? Birendra's shaking his head.
So yeah, really nice question, and I think this is something which I think recently people have started talking about, and most of the machine learning engineers, and even when we're like creating the models and all, right, we really don't care about, right, because we are in our own space. We really think like, okay, we have to build and we have to solve the problem. But especially when I'm working right now close to 3 years in medical domain, that was really difficult. The domain itself is being like you really need to work with doctors, the radiologists, and need to understand their clinical workflows and how they really work. It's their space. And you being a technologist now really have to understand their terms. And now you have to interpret whatever work you're doing and bringing the solution to their table. So now you have to talk to in their terms. So making that kind of explaining, and now if you're saying that something like, okay, now there's a model and he can do a lot of automation, like now he can predict whether the particular patient has a cancer or not, right? Now that could be a really scary space for any people who have a master of their own domain. Now how we will bring this kind of innovation and the kind of technology which we are building, like especially this is happening more in medical imaging, where a lot of radiologists spend hours in just dealing with one kind of patient and maybe delineating a heart chamber like in an MRI image, and the kind of stress which we have seen, especially during the COVID, like radiologists are just spending almost more than 20 hours in their space to dealing with such kind of load. And so that kind of space where we build, so explainability becomes a very important I'd say the stake in any machine learning application to get into the real world. That's what first thing. Now explainability could be a lot when we are talking about like I'm just going to give you an example. Like if you are doing an MRI workflow, so it typically takes 30 minutes the whole workflow, and the patient really nobody wants to spend 30 minutes inside an MRI machine, right? No patients will want. And even
That's for
after that
sure.
work, right, even after that workflow gets over, the radiologist take that image and it takes almost half an hour and maybe almost 40 minutes to derive a lot of information from it. Like maybe doing an volumetric segmentation, that's the biggest thing. Then you'll get to know what is the actual blood flow happening, and then same information goes to the doctor. Then he will take all the information from that, and then he will take the decision on the top of it, right? In the end, it's a decision making. So if the whole workflow can be reduced by using an AI algorithm, maybe to 5 minutes, right, maybe 4 or 5 minutes, that's a huge advantage. And we can save a lot of millions of life, and we can like make a new way of having this medical workflow. And so to get this way, there are different algorithms which you are working. Like one example is GradCam, where when we are doing an image segmentation, the GradCam can explain, it's more of an explainability where why this particular segmentation or why this particular model is being saying that this kind of disease is happening, maybe because of your lung. Like for example, the biggest use case was happening in COVID is the kind of lung nodules happens. Now, is it because of pneumonia or any other lung, like 10 different lung disease, or is it because of COVID? So it's a very difficult task to do, right? So getting on that explainability part can really help in such kind of situations.
Okay, thank you. That was great. And Harshal, this one's for you. And also I have a follow-up on this explainability thing, which I think we can combine together, right? So machine learning models and advanced analytics solutions are usually discussed, as Ashish said, in sort of technical words, technical parlance, right, for lack of a better term. And this makes the role of the business analysts really critical. I want to know what your view is on that. And the thing that Ashish made me think about a lot was it feels like it's a little bit of a two-way street, right? The people that are processing the MRI need to understand the terminology that the ML models are using and vice versa, because if you're building the model for somebody who doesn't understand it, they need to understand your parlance as well.
Yep.
So what is your view on this?
Well, I think it's a very tricky job, and it's like you need to know both side of the worlds, how the
Yeah.
machine learning model is actually reading the data, how is interpreting it, how it's predicting. And you need to understand how the business user, how the end user is going to use that data at the end of it. And I think it's a very important job as well, because if somebody has both sides of the information, he can actually cut down on a lot of time that is spent on iterating through the models, making sure that the business agrees with what is being done at the end of it. Another important aspect is focusing the model in the right direction. Maybe it's not the accuracy that we're looking at. If we want to, let's say, predict customer churn, because I won't talk about MRI, that's not my domain. I'll talk about in e-commerce industry. So if let's say customer churn is something has to be predicted, maybe it's more important to identify who are the customers who have a high likelihood of churn. So instead of maybe a data scientist would not have that information directly in how this churn model is going to be used, is going to reacquire, is going to use it to identify the right customer in the future. So I think it's a very I think I've said it twice as well. It's a very critical and a very essential position where you have to kind of align everybody on the same page, make sure that the end goal is same for everybody, with actionable and the insights, like, and the focus of the whole architecture, the data layer, the data capturing, the model, and all is all aligned to the same towards the same objective.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much for that.
Good evening to all my fellow panelists. As far as the network intelligence is concerned, as far as the data is concerned, during post-pandemic areas, that there are the endpoints which are like, because it gives you a flexibility of working from anywhere. It's not that necessarily one works from the four wall. That it's basically people are having a approach of being technology agnostic, device agnostic approach, and the endpoints are not known. During this pandemic times, what really network intelligence played a basic role to us was that in terms of where the data was traveling through endpoints, while the data is in rest and in motion, the people were trying to hook onto the corporate applications, right? And these endpoints were basically even through certain areas where we were not being given them corporate laptops, or they were not getting the VPN. So they were basically connecting through their BYODs, their own laptops or desktops. And probably these endpoints were giving us an alert and a mechanism to see this is a new particular domain, or there is a new person, which is an unidentified username on the network. So probably trying to understand that particular thing through different intelligence systems, where artificial intelligence played a very big role. Now, AI, in terms of how we implemented NOC, and we gave certain things, which is command center, eyeball monitoring, where what happens that network intelligence is being taken care of, where if we have the live feeds which are coming through our video analytics, so we are able to identify if there are like, if there is something as a downtime, if there is some SLA breach, if there is something where an integration or interoperability between a command center, SOC and NOC is all integrated into one common console. So artificial intelligence played a very big role over there for us. So it forecasted for us the trends that were taken in the historical data, and it was giving us an analysis which got embedded and which we basically defined as a part of the rule engine. And basis that we forecasted that there might be some downtimes during that time. So at granular level, we tried to, what we automated these processes. It not only helped us to, give an understanding that, how we should be prepared in terms of how much things will be down, what will be an alternate arrangement in case we want to plan for a BCP for any kind of such links. And thirdly, it also helped us in the billing cycle as well. The billing cycle was definitely which was the need of the hour, so that we are not paying, we are only paying for what is being utilized. We are not overpaying or underpaying because of the total bandwidth on demand. Now similar scenario was even on the cloud technologies. When the entire infrastructure was hosted on the cloud model, the on demand basis, we used to scale up and down as and when the need of the business used to arise.
Right.
That any new campaign is being launched, so there, these particular rule engines or logics or algorithms which got defined through a fully end-to-end automated systems gave us a lot of forecasts.
Really, really interesting. There's so much more to talk about here. Ashish, I want to come back to you for a second. Can you share some examples of the deep learning models from a use case perspective? Right, again, getting back to this concept of, coming up with the modeling, but then how's the business going to use it? And maybe you can share some insights on like timelines for how long these things normally take to deploy, if you can give an example for that.
Thanks. Yeah. So like from my experience, as I have moved in the last 3 years, mostly in healthcare domain, and I like to talk more about that work which I have worked on, which related to more of an MRI images and CT scans, and where we have different brain image and cardiac images, right? The data is very complex in that, and we try to build some use cases which are either based on classification, whether the kind of lung scan is there is any probability of having a cancer, or like doing a delineation of heart, which can really help the radiologist, and it can be a part of workflow of the medical devices which we currently see. The businesses has Philips and Siemens, and yeah, these are the major medical device provided. So these are the use cases which currently being used. Apart from that, a lot of use cases around using either using NLP in medical devices, where we try to use RNN and some advanced deep learning models to build more use cases which can help the hospitals in their workflows. So these are the some major use cases which can I talk about, which is being used. Now coming to the timeline, the kind of infrastructure we use, obviously the images, if you see, right, a cardiac image, it's not a single image, it's a kind of volumetric data. So right, it's a heavy data itself, and processing those data on CPU is a very challenging task. So most of the time we use a kind of GPU. There could be in-house GPU or servers where we try to build the models, and there could be a lot of different models being different researchers will try to use different techniques. Some will try to go for advanced or bigger deep learning models, right? And somebody will try to use some traditional approach along with the machine learning that is being already there. And most of the things, either it's being written in Python or the latest packages which we have. But the major problem happen in the production is how to take it to the actual use or the medical devices which we have or application, how to integrate with that. The major problem happens there itself. Either you have to change it, convert into a kind of code or binaries where it can be seamlessly integrated with that. And also the researcher spends a lot of time in creating models. So if you look at the single model, and it's having a huge weights, right? And you have, for example, 15-20 different algorithms running, and now how to manage those algorithms and how to make a differentiate that, okay, this particular algorithm has working really great, but is the algorithm, can I take it to production? Because if it will take 10 minutes for me to give an inference, that won't be a right algorithm to go. I can go with another approach where I can reduce the inference time and I can get the best results. So those kinds of use cases and kind of comparison we do, where we look at the latency, at the same time what is the accuracy of that particular model, how robust that particular model given a data set. So there itself we look what are the different sources from which we have captured data, and whether that model is robust enough that will not break. Then there comes the productionized part. Yeah, it takes almost, I'll say, last part which is talking about taking it to production, roughly minimum I think 1 or 2 months it takes, if we have a kind of process where we follow software COE practices, where we try to check like keep checking the codes into repositories and doing the sanity check and running unit test cases and all, being in the machine learning cycle. So we have just started putting that workflow, so we can reduce that turnaround time for production, because these practices are still not being used much in especially in research for machine learning things.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much. Very detailed answer. Batul Mittal, maybe you can give us some interesting use cases for machine learning and deep learning solutions as well. Did we lose him? Batul, are you there?
I think we can move on to the next, Michael. Yes.
Of course. I think he stepped away for a second. Not a problem at all.
Yeah, I guess.
So Narasimha Dem, maybe you can share some of these use cases and MLDL solutions from a travel business perspective.
Sure.
Thank
So,
you.
hi. I mean, ranking, dynamic pricing are like very common problems in travel industry, at least in an OTA space. But apart from that, we have a lot of text data as well, like in terms of, say, review aspect mining and all. And we also have to think about how to improve the customer experience post sales. So there's a chat bot and how we can automate, at least semi-automate the user intent prediction, etc. And apart from this, there are other problems as well, because we have data, we can do demand forecasting problems, and then think about how proactively this can be used in other lines of business, whether on the supply side or in other problems. And from a customer point of view, destination propensity is one theme or a flavor that comes up to think about, okay, which are the other destinations that the user may like, or the content. And all this is in the context of user experience and a user behavior. When we have the image data for the hotels and all, and there again, like there are quite a bit of diverse set of problems, and how machine learning data science models can be used to ensure that the quality of the content is good and also relevant. So for some of them, we can use publicly available tools, because the scale of the training data is huge enough, and hence the models are good enough. But whereas in few other problems, we have to do we have to have domain specific data, train them, and then use them.
Okay, that's really interesting as well. Let's move on. I want to get to Santosh Bhatt on this next question. India, it's well known that a good part of interaction with customers in India is still via call centers. And frankly, that's true across Southeast Asia, to be fair. Maybe you can share some examples on how prescriptive analytics can help improve the productivity for those call centers at an agent level.
Sure, Michael. So let's kind of first define, I think, before we actually kind of move to how it actually improves agent productivity. Let's define what prescriptive analytics means, right? I mean, fundamentally, I mean, at least to me, prescriptive analytics is recommendations, right? System-driven recommendations. So now what really happens is, when you're actually trying to recommend, you have to do the entire, I mean, you have to build a bunch of models behind the scenes. At the heart of it, and like you said, like call center, there is basically a conversation that happens between the agent and the customer. Now that has to be converted from speech to text before we actually do anything. I mean, any kind of downstream processing of that data, right? Which is natural language understanding. So at Policy Bazaar, what we've done is we've actually created this entire infrastructure, as well as we've actually built our own speech to text algorithms. Pretty cool. But the downstream side, once you actually get to that, like, so what we do is we look at, different facets of that conversation. Now, examples would be, for example, let's say when there could be scenarios where the customer is not interested because of XYZ reasons, right? And some of these conversations don't necessarily happen on one call. It can happen on multiple calls. So now when a call gets gets completed, we actually mine the data and we look for basically some kind of insights. And so for example, what is the intent of the customer? Now if there is if the intent of the customer is high or the interest is high, yet he is not very sure, now there are a bunch of steps that we recommend on our own homegrown platform. The second use case that I could think of is a real benefit is you look at the high performing agents versus the low performing and see how the pitches have been different in different scenarios.
Right.
Now that essentially helps significantly in the productivity as well. I mean, these are two examples. One is actually starting to flag off certain customer intents and the possible pitches that can go in almost real time. And the second one is actually looking at basically the automated quality assessment of the calls itself or the agents and so on. That significantly helps them in their productivity.
Got it. Okay. Very interesting. So Banu Kumar, this question's for you. What do you see are some, and just to let everybody know, I think we were planning to end this at 6:30, which is probably 5 o'clock everybody's time in India. But the discussion's actually going really well and I have more questions. So we may go over a little bit, maybe 15 minutes, just so everybody knows to stay on the call. We're not done yet and we're not close actually, but so fascinating. So Banu Kumar, this is for you. What are some of the most promising sectors where you see the quicker adoption of ML ops platforms in India?
Okay. From an ML adoption perspective, I think we were already talking about quite a few where we have already started implementing in terms of it. Now, typically the way I'm trying to look at it is, am I audible?
You are. There's a little bit of a clicking sound when you're talking.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I don't know. So I hope it is better now. Yeah.
Better.
Okay. What I was saying is typically the way I'm trying to look at it is the ML ops is going to come up operational in those areas where obviously there is a faster pace of decision requirement coming in. Already we are seeing some of these operations happening from a technology perspective in terms of, be it in terms of operational efficiency or in terms of capacity planning or those areas where we have already seen some of these coming up. That's on one side. On the other, like for example, manufacturing, obviously the bigger one with all the industry 4.0 and all that, there is a lot of opportunity that is evolving and that is certain things have already done. Stuff like supply chain optimization, which is by default all of us have been talking about. But today we have evolved where we are talking about fault identification, predictive maintenance. We are even talking about product optimizations and all that are to an extent an intelligent planning to happen in terms of the production planning. So those are some of the things which are really catching up. Healthcare, obviously, it was always there, but the pandemic has actually put in healthcare into a real fast track. Absolutely. That's how I would probably talk of, because from a threat and risk analysis, we are talking about patient safety, we are talking about early diagnosis, we are talking about, and people like Ashish gave brilliant examples on healthcare. So there is a lot that is happening. To an extent, retail, e-commerce, again, that has been the biggest IT platform. There again, we have a lot around the fraud and theft, segmentation of forecasting aspects, customer experiences. We did have some examples from Bazaar and others also coming in. So typically, if you look at it, public sector, oil and gas, manufacturing, healthcare, technology, these are pure play technology. I mean technology as an operational effectiveness, capacity planning kinds. These are areas where I foresee a lot of opportunity for usage of this because there is a lot of scope for data and the data is really volatile. It keeps changing. So that's how I look at it at this moment.
Got it. Okay. I'd like to jump to Prasanna Lohar. Prasanna, maybe you can give everybody just a quick 2-minute introduction and then just a quick question for you. on maybe sharing some challenges for implementing artificial intelligence in a regulated environment.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, for
Thank you.
these questions. And thank you, Asia Tech Podcast, for inviting me here. I'm Prasanna Luar. I work from DCB Bank as an innovation, digital, and architecture head. Okay, so coming back to your question, I think AI fits into our digital transformation journey as in the backend, right? Which will be helpful to make customer behavior bidirectional transaction creation. Say example, since now till now, customer was operating on mobile, internet, or any of the channels. This channel transition is to come in a unidirectional way on our omni-channel architecture. But now, say example, tomorrow a customer who is opening an account, right, where the customer journey starts. So how can I make him the more engaged customer? How can I really safeguard his experience onto the mobile app or on the internet banking? Or how do I really take care of his aspiration to save some money? So there comes, I can really make this possible with the help of some of the manual efforts, where after every person, I need to put some of the relationship managers, right? Wherein they will talk to him, ask him, understand him, keep on engaging. So, but I think that's not the era which will live in the next after 2-3 years, when 5G will come to picture, and when customers will order their devices or gadgets to the fund transfer, to some of those transactions, right? That point in time, we need to create a mechanism which is an artificial mechanism who will engage these customers. That's how we look at AI, big data coming together and understand customers' behavior and give back him the much more required services. So as a bank, we are implementing some of the AI on a video KYC or some of the KYC operations, wherein at the end of the day, when we just understand the more or the less the pattern of all those 1,000, 2,000 plus customers, and give or that algorithm plays a major role to authorize or to approve all of those KYCs or disapprove some of them because of some kind of a mismatch of the name or some kind of a mismatch of the KYC which he has given. That could be one example where customer journey starts, right? Say example, next example I can give in, right? Customer is already doing transactions, but now as a customer, he was doing transactions on from one of the city in India, and all of a sudden, next moment transactions are coming from Russia, Romania, or somewhere, where we keep on understanding the transaction pattern, give back an authentication or second factor to the customer. Are you the same person who was doing? So this comes with understanding the whole 360 degree of a customer's behavior on a transaction. These kind of things we have implemented around in the regulation. Even regulation internally, RBI at India says that we can certainly implement video KYC or a fraud risk management tool or adaptive authentication kind of mechanisms. Some of the other use cases at a bank is like we have identified more than 100 plus areas where current operations, say example, during pandemic, we used to operate only on digital mode. So a lot of things wherein operations efforts are required or man is required to do the much more required settlement, reconciliations, all those regular processes. So these processes one by one, typically based upon a priority, based upon how much we can save against that automation of those processes. That's how we are working on RPA, robotic process automation, on the next level of intelligent automations. So I think in a nutshell, Michael, what I can say that today customer is a more agile and more like hyper personalized. He want all of my services wherever he's standing or wherever he is. So tomorrow he wants his smart home to do fund transfer or a smart car or he will give a command to their refrigerator to order the food. So tomorrow when 5G or IoT will come into picture, I think as a bank, we need to understand how this whole momentum will go into the future. So I think that's very important for us, apart from mobility or IoT, how AI will come into picture. So as you rightly said, under regulation and under compliance, we are taking up steps one by one, where having those right set of people who understands AI and implement AI, and the right set of a technology service provider and technology product like Hadoop or a big data Kafka. So we have our own center of excellence to implement AI projects at a bank level. So which was not there 4 years before. But as a bank, we understood this is a need of a time, and we are on that journey. So these are my some of the remarks on the AI journey in typically in Indian banking sector, Michael.
Prasanna, thank you very much for that. I want to get back, Paul, this is for you. I want to get back to a topic that we brought up earlier about being siloed and sort of the relationship between data scientists and business analysts and data engineers. And I wanted to just sort of make the point that there is a perception that, I mean, everybody's kind of siloed, but the data scientists, excuse me, are siloed in their work environments. And from your perspective, how do you think we can foster better collaboration with the other stakeholders, including the business analysts, the data engineers, and other people in the business?
So it's a very, very good question. I think this is what we face a challenge during when we started implementing a complete big data journey. So I can create army of data engineers or data science guys and statisticians at my IT unit. But it's very important for to connect those business cases or use cases to the business guys. So I think things started from boardroom. So wherein we had given a presentation or some handholding or awareness session, how this whole journey is going to be helpful for a bank like a DCB to go for the next level. So I think there we had involved all the business stakeholders, and today every business stakeholder in the organization understand what is by big data, and whenever any project we implement, they ask whether the big data is involved. Are you having right set of data strategy in any of the projects? That's what we have seen. It's not overnight job. It took around 2.5 years for to reach out to the or bringing out some of the use cases to see how on branches my frontline staffs are working properly. Okay, and that's how today we or maybe 2 years before we had started this big data unit with the 4 guys. Today we have around 12 to 16 guys working in that area. And at a CEO level, he understands what is meant by data science or data engineering and how to really go ahead and select those guys. I think one important aspect we have done here, instead of hiring a leader out from outside, we have taken a leader for this area inside. We have groomed him, and so that he can really connect business teams. If would have given an expert coming from industry, it would have been very tough for him to really connect the industry or how data movement is happening to the internal business stakeholders. That was, I think, that is a strong link which we have created, and I think we have seen some success around this area, and that has become a prominent unit for us to be part of every board meeting. So we keep on apart from cyber security, we have updates from that unit also. So that gives us, yeah, that's also part of our journey. And I think you rightly pointed out that's very important important step, I think, while implementing any of those data journey for any of the organizations. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to get Paul's Paul's answer to that question as well. Then I want to go to Vartul Mittal for another question. So Paul, maybe you can jump in on that too.
Sure, Michael. Let me quickly jump in. As always, collaboration is a tricky topic, and it's not necessarily only with data science or with ML ops in perspective.
Right.
One of the biggest things is I would start with the aspect of culture. It really depends, and I really echo what Prasanna and the points Prasanna said from his experiences. However, I've seen this across organizations, across implementations, across sectors, across geographies. There is always going to be a collaboration issue unless the culture aspect is not addressed. Let me give you a typical example. Usually, there is an enterprise level meeting, a board level meeting, where, maybe the project head or at the most, a business analyst might be present with respect to our implementation. Okay, they go in for the meeting because everyone can't go for every meeting. Then coming back, the debrief is usually missing. Okay? And that's what happens. And the data science guys usually do not get aligned to the holistic enterprise mission. The business delivery point gets missed. The business agenda gets skipped, and all those ripple effects keep coming in. I have seen multiple ways how people have overcome this. There are several tools out there in the market where information is democratized, like Slack and Trello and whatnot. But effective usage of this can happen only if there is a culture and there is a flat organization culture. Now, apart from culture, there are certain other aspects that matter out here for collaboration. Number one is pretty simple for everyone. It is standardization of how one operates, standardization of, let's look at collaboration within data centers also. If one person writes code in a particular manner, it sometimes or often is not standard practice followed by the other person. So following some standard principles is a big part. Then, of course, in ML ops, model ops, or whatever name you want to call it, there is an aspect of governance put in place where information is documented, and the same information information collaboration happens over periods of time. And those also have their ripple effects. I think these three areas would be the main.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much for the feedback. I want to jump to Vartul Mittal for a moment. Given your experience of using MLOps platforms, what do you think are the most important features for these platforms?
Thank you, Michael, for the question. So I'll not take much time. I'll probably be quick. So
take as much time as you'd like, please.
Okay, thank you, Michael. So, Michael, like I have been working with service providers like IBMs of the world, Wipro of the world, and that too in their the AI divisions like IBM Watson, Wipro Homes, and similarly I have been part of the Center of Excellence team for a couple of shared service centers. So the core area for me has always been the use case. Whether it's a MLAI or whatever technology or programming language we use, the focus has been the use case. And if I take the best or closest to my heart, they have been claims processing, invoice processing, contact center integration. So where most of the solutions where we use MLAI as a concept for automation when we go beyond RPA. So definitely we deployed around 500 plus bots on RPA. Then we wanted to move ahead towards more, I'll say, exception or the followed processes, which are not straight through. And over there is no choice left to us. We have to look upon the different technologies, different data models, which we can develop to ensure that we have the right insights from the unstructured and semi-structured data. So that was the reason, and I will not go very far. I'll take a very practical example. While we were looking for various intelligent document processing solutions, few comes inbuilt on the RPA platform, but while we actually go for a POC, they work very well. And when we go for a mass deployment and we scale up the use cases, we feel that there are errors in the final product. So we have gone ahead, developed few wrappers around the intelligent document processing solutions in-house, and ensured that whatever unstructured, semi-structured data we have, whatever documentation details we have, we can use ML and deep learning effectively on those platforms, and can ensure that the entire bespoke AI-based solution can be created not only in the back office, but also in the front office. So 2++ enhance our best of the breed capabilities, which can actually solve our problem to have a switching cost, which is very higher. And we can move from one platform to another platform if we feel that it has already been built in-house. So that has been a major reason where MLAI has been in place. Secondly, we have focused very heavily on the three parts, what I call pre-extraction, extraction, and post-extraction. In pre-extraction, we have gone ahead, build our own algorithms on pre-processing of images, text, then data capture done very well. And we focus very heavily on the extraction of the relevant fields. So this is something, the biggest challenge we feel when we face when we go for any advanced hyper automation, while we have done the basic automation using process mining and RPA, and we scale our operations towards the downstream applications to have a much more refined output. So ML and ML, deep learning, and plus AI algorithms were strong enough for us to move from the traditional template-based solution to more context-based solutions. That is for one, I'll say major KPI. Second was to move from the documentation, which covers only, I'll say, image-based or a text-based, but where we have a more system, which is system trained data, which can be converted easily using various in-house built natural language models, where we have definitely the luxuries that we had the training data and the test data in hand, which was in line. And we managed to get the infra in place for the production development and the final to be scenario. So as a combination of four models, one was computer vision, second was ML and DL model, third was NLP, and fourth was the IDP, which I covered, document processing or erstwhile optical character recognition. So these four models were developed in-house and with a deep built-in ML, deep learning algorithms for document classification, document extraction, training of the software. So all these models, the beauty and I'll say the learning that we had is we cannot rely on a platform which is off the shelf or which is a SaaS-based solution, because no platform which we bring in can solve our end-to-end use case. It will solve in few percentages or some part of it, but while we need to solve end-to-end use case, we need uh, whether we use resources from a systems integrator or we hire and train them internally. So that requires a level of customization. When we talk about the right level of NLP or IDP outcome, where we can even, I'll say, analyze a running text under any kind of context, under any kind of field that need to be extracted. So long story short, the whole idea is bring different platforms together, solve a end-to-end use case, and it necessarily not need to be only a ML or a AI model. It can be something which can be through a IDP solution, for which we don't need to have everything built in from scratch. So, Michael, this is from my side. I feel that this is the very ongoing problem which most of the customers face, because everybody has the same need. Everybody deals with documentation, whether it's a horizontal use case or a vertical use case. And those documentation is good to see getting processed at a POC level, but when we scale up, the exceptions are huge.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you very much for that. I'm getting a little bit of an echo, so somebody needs to mute themselves. I just want to say that we're just about finished here, and I just want to thank everybody for doing this. What an amazing, I mean, you knew when you looked at the guest list and saw the organization that this was going to be an incredible conversation, and it was really, really insightful for me. I think for everybody else that was listening as well, I learned a lot. I'd like to thank all of the attendees, the people that joined, all of the guests for their incredible input, really incredible. And also to Ekta Dubey and the entire team from the Brainalytics for organizing this event. And finally, I would be remiss if I did not also thank Jaspal Singh and Abzuba for making today possible. Thank you again. Back to you, Ekta.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much, Michael. So on final thought, we were successful in understanding the best practice of effective data science management, how adopting MLOps can help companies with ML culture, and the key pillars of the MLOps. And I'm sure there is much more to this. So on the closing note, I would like to thank our partner, Abzuba, for associating with us for this interesting roundtable. Michael, thank you for wonderfully moderating the whole session. all our thought leaders for taking out your precious time, sharing your great, interesting insights on the subject, and being here. Not missing our lovely audience for your time and being here. I hope you all had great session interacting with the speakers on the chat room, where I could see a lot of questions were there, and Abzuba team did a great job in answering the questions, and also our thought leaders added a lot. So we shall be updating the video link on our website shortly. We'll sharing the YouTube link with you guys, and requesting you to all please respond to our feedback form, which was just posted on the chat room by my team. And please follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for the webinars and roundtables and other event updates. So thank you everyone for being here, and have a nice weekend. Stay safe. That's all from my end. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.